So in this video, in this live stream, for those of you who are watching, it looks like we've got about 11 of you in here. So thank you for all of you guys jumping in. And for those of you recording, really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this. So within this live stream, I'll be diving through the acquisitions framework. And for those of you who are watching live, if you look in the description, we will have a form submission. So if you guys want to submit your questions as we go along, I'll be able to check those out and answer them immediately. So let's dive into it. So within this live stream, I'll be walking through our acquisition framework, how to monetize every single lead that enters your CRM through our battle-tested acquisitions framework. And this framework was built off of my personal experience wholesaling and working with hundreds of other wholesalers and investors who are also in the space that are also leveraging cold calling and more specifically no accent callers as their lead gen channel. So we'll be diving through how you can best utilize these leads and to turn those leads into dollars. So before I dive into the tactical breakdown, I'm going to quickly just give a walkthrough on my background, why I believe I'm qualified to speak on this topic, and just kind of a quick journey, and then we'll dive right into the tactical breakdown of this process. So again, for those of you watching this again, my apologies, but so I'll be breaking down how I was able to scale my wholesale business from doing nothing to 200 grand plus per month during a 2-year runway, while also simultaneously building a portfolio of 103 units across Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Birmingham, Alabama, and Lubbock, Texas, all while I lived in Chicago. And fun fact, I've never seen these properties before. So I was able to do all of this while a full-time college student with no prior real estate experience, with no mentors, nothing. And I'm going to be breaking down that exact protocol so you can do the same exact thing. So for those of you who are maybe currently in school or currently working a job or have other obligations, this is a testament that you can still do this and make it work despite having other obligations, as I was able to build this while in college and, of course, now full-time into it. So really quick background on myself. I started off as a freshman in college, just itching away to find a way to make money in real estate. I knew it was a path I wanted to take, but I honestly didn't really know how. So for some odd reason, I thought the best way to figure out that was through scrolling on Instagram, and I came across a Section 8 niche, and I thought that was the route I wanted to go. So I doubled down. I partnered up with my friend who had some money, and we were off to the races. Somehow, as you guys saw, we ended up choosing on Birmingham, Alabama. It was honestly pretty random, but the economics made sense. Lowest property taxes, it was cheap assets, and easy for Section 8. So we wanted to take action and move fast. So we're like, let's roll, let's get going. And fast forward 3 months later, we got our first deal. And this is the first property that we bought, 2113 31st Street, Ensley in Birmingham, Alabama. I think I was 18 years old when we bought this property, or maybe 19. I don't know. I'm losing count of years these days. But for the first time ever, our property has went vacant. So we've been cash flowing for 4 years plus, and it's been an amazing asset. But quick story on that one, we bought it for 50 grand, put in 17K of work, and hey, now it's worth 120 grand. And it was an amazing deal. And ever since that one, I was hooked. But I bought this rental property. I had no money. And I was like, okay, what do I do next? And that's where I came across the rabbit hole of wholesaling real estate. And I was hooked. So I pulled a list, I bought a dialer, and right away, I just began hitting the phones. And after a miraculous 6 months of 8 hours a day for 7 days a week, I got my first deal, and that deal I made 12 grand. That was all the validation I needed. I was super excited, but I knew that was not sustainable. 6 months of work to just do one deal. I needed to change something. And as a bunch of you guys probably know as well, you guys get a lot of texts from people on Facebook, on Instagram, email, wherever, of a bunch of people overseas trying to text you, hey, can I have the service, or can I call for you? I usually ignore those, but I had this one individual who was super persistent on offering a cold call for me. And I finally gave in. I got on a call with him, and I talked with him. I heard his English. I heard his real estate acumen. And I was like, oh my God, like if everyone is as amazing as you, let's get 5 people and let's start rolling here. And after that, I was off to the races. And during that 12-month sprint, I went from doing one deal every 6 months to doing maybe about 10 to 12 deals a month, doing about 100 grand per month in assignment fees. So over that sprint with that cold calling foundation, we were able to get to that threshold. And a little bit about me. So I always hated those guys on Instagram who would lie about the deals and lie about the numbers they would do. So just for a little bit of context, so I can show you that I actually do deals. Here are some that we have so far this month as of September 12th. We have this deal in Hesperia, California. We have it under contract for 345K, and we have it currently listed for 475. That's gonna be about $100,000 profit deal. We've got another one in Millsboro, Delaware, under contract for 175, and now it's listed for 238. We should make 40,000. Those are just two of the novations that we have. And we also closed out on a flip that we bought for 264 and listed for 450. As you see here, we are going to net 163,000 on this deal. So from these three deals alone, we're going to do about 300,000. And the reason I want to show you this is just to show you that we are actually in this business. We are in all of your shoes. And just to kind of show that, hey, the protocol we have built has worked for us. We have found some success with it. So now I'll be walking you through what that exact process looks like, what we leverage in our own businesses, and what we have seen other individuals who have been absolutely crushing it, what they are leveraging as well. So before I dive into that protocol, I'm just going to see if any of you submitted any questions. So it looks like none yet. If any of you have questions, look in the description. There'll be a quick form where you guys can submit any questions that you have as I dive into this. If you want me to go back and explain something or dive into something further. But yeah, let's dive right into it. So let me make sure I have my screen shared properly this time. So we're going to be walking through this full protocol A to Z, from when a lead hits the CRM to actually getting a deal. So I'll be walking you guys through what that exact process is, and hopefully you can take away a couple nuggets that you can leverage within your business. So a lead comes in from your cold callers and it hits your CRM. And this is the biggest thing that I see, and I want to really dive deep on before we dive into like the actual acquisition framework. And that is two topics. Number one is speed to lead, and number two is prejudging your leads. And this is the biggest mistake that I see people make in this business. So firstly, speed to lead. Why speed matters. Speed is everything in this game. I hate to say it, in single family real estate, it is extremely competitive. A lot of people are wanting to get into the space. A lot of people are wanting to wholesale, to buy properties, to do flips. You are almost never the first person to ever contact that seller. This data is public. Anyone with a subscription to a software can get access to this, and anybody with a phone can make a call. There is a lot of competition, and that is why timing and speed is what will allow you to win. So the golden window, the best operators, what they do is when a lead hits your CRM, they are not waiting 5 minutes. They are not analyzing the deal. They are calling within 15 seconds of that lead hitting their CRM. And I did not originate this. We work with an individual who does, no joke, about 900,000 a month in wholesale fees. And this is their sauce. This is the number one thing that they told me was why they have found so much success, is they are calling their leads right away. Because the longer you let that lead sit, the more likely someone it is to take it from you, or that seller is going to change their mind, or their circumstances might change. And that is why speed is key in this business. Immediate action always wins. So if that seller talks to another person before you're too late. You already lost. Speed is key in this business. And now my favorite thing, and again, this is piggybacking off of what another operator was telling me has crushed it for them and what we have leveraged ourselves, is prejudging leads. And this is probably the number one reason that I see people fail within any lead generation they're using. Whether you're using no accent callers, or you're using another PPL provider, or you're doing PPC, or you're working with another company that's going to deliver you leads. This is the number one mistake that I see people make, and that is prejudging these leads before you ever even have a conversation with the individual. So, and the reality is a lot of it is analysis paralysis. So what I see people do is a lead hits their CRM, and instead of that person actually calling the prospect right away, instead they're looking at the call notes, they're looking at the recording, they're spending 30 minutes looking up the comps. What is this property worth? Hey, what is my MAO? What would the terms be if it was a seller finance? Oh, let me check PropStream and see what their mortgage is. Let me check the tax records and make sure I'm talking to the real person. They're trying to figure out if this is a good lead or a bad lead before they even have a conversation. And I hate to say it, what happens a lot of times is you call an individual and they won't even answer the phone. And you just wasted 30 minutes to an hour of your time analyzing it before you even had a conversation. So this kind of piggybacks off of the speed side of things. And I think the real problem with this is like a false certainty. When you are prejudging a lead, what you're doing is you're creating this like false sense of certainty. You're telling yourself a story about the seller without actually having the data, without having the conversation. Oh, they want too much money. Oh, they're not motivated. Oh, this isn't a deal. But the reality is You don't know anything yet. You have not built rapport. You haven't got into the real situation. You haven't even talked to the seller yet. So these assumptions, they are made up. You're working off of surface level notes and you're just trying to fill in the gaps. And consequently, you are missing out on opportunities. And the reality is this: with a cold call lead, this individual, it is someone overseas who had a 5-minute conversation with that prospect. If you go and cold call someone and I say, hey, are you looking to sell your property? And I dive into the process and I ask them why they want to sell. It's only been 3 minutes. I haven't built a connection. They're not going to dive deep into the bloody divorce that they're dealing with, or they're not going to dive deep into the nuances of, hey, one of my family passed away and this property was inherited. They're not going to dive into their financial struggles and being in a pre-foreclosure. You haven't built a connection. You haven't even dove into this individual's problems yet. They're not going to just be an open book and share everything. It is a cold call and you've talked for 3 minutes. So this is creating false certainty by analyzing these leads and analyzing the notes before you even have that conversation, because the reality is you do not know anything yet. You have not talked to that individual. So why people do it is, I think sometimes there's a fear of wasting their time. People think this a form of protection is, oh, they don't want to waste their time talking to somebody who doesn't want to sell, or, hey, they want too much money. It's not even worth my time to reach out. So some people are tricking themselves into thinking that they're being efficient by picking and choosing which leads are worth calling. And again, it's really important to understand the seller's mindset. You got to put yourself in the seller's shoes. Again, and I want to reiterate this one more time. They just had a 5-minute call with someone overseas, a complete stranger. Maybe they were half listening. Maybe they were in the car. Maybe they were in between lunch breaks. Do you really think they're going to spill their entire life story and their deepest intrinsic motivations on that first call? Of course not. That is your job as the acquisition rep to uncover those problems, to uncover their situation. And that is the biggest thing that I see people make mistakes is the cold call. That is to scratch the surface. Now it is your job to dive into it and have that real conversation. So again, this is what the best closers do differently. And like I said, I was talking to that wholesale team that I mentioned, where they are closing, no joke, 1 in every 16 leads. And what they do is they actually don't even read the notes. They don't even listen to the recordings. They don't comp the property before dialing. Instead, they see the lead come in, they see the phone number, they see the name, the address, and they click dial. So instead of overanalyzing it, they'll call and say, hey, John, I saw you talked with my associate Janet a little bit ago about your property in Madison. You able to kind of quickly catch me up to speed on what you guys discussed? They're not making any assumptions. They're not overthinking. They're not hesitating. They are calling right away. And to piggyback off of that, I think this is probably one of the biggest mistakes I see with prejudging of leads is price. A seller's price is not final. It is just a starting point. It is not their final number. So I'll see individuals that will say, oh, that person wants 250K. No way. That's too much money. Not a deal. But again, you have not built rapport yet. You have not had a conversation. You have not built any trust. You need to uncover their problems and be able to offer value in exchange for, of course, the price we are offering. So, of course, the seller is going to throw out a high number. They're not going to immediately throw out the lowest number they have because it's just a defense mechanism at the end of the day. It's been a 5-minute call. They're not going to immediately go to the lowest possible price because you, as the acquisition rep, you need to understand the full story. You need to understand their problems. The analogy that I always like to use is you are the doctor and they are the patient. When the patient comes into the office, you're not going to immediately prescribe them something. You need to ask them questions. You need to understand their problems, understand their symptoms. And now it is your job as a doctor to analyze all this information and craft the perfect solution, the prescription, or whatever it is. So another piece of this is, and cold calling, it is a volume game, not a judgment game. The biggest thing we see with cold call leads, and it's the unfortunate reality, is your average close rate is going to be 1 in every 20, 25, or 30 leads. It might take you 30 conversations to actually get a deal. So by you overanalyzing and making those assumptions and not having those conversations, you are only making that metric harder and harder for you to hit. Because if you only talk to 30% of the people that hit your CRM, it's going to take you 3 times as many leads to get a deal. And again, this is just the industry average. This is the reality. For every 20 to 35 leads, you get a deal. But not just leads, conversations. So if you are not talking to these prospects, you are not going to get a deal. that is the unfortunate reality. And just in general, like world-class acquisitions is curiosity over assumptions. You want to go in there like you don't know anything. You want to understand their problems, ask the right questions. So, like I said, how to implement this: call every single lead immediately. Do not analyze it. Do not comp it. Do not read the note. I mean, you can skim it quickly, but just speed is key. Do not be stuck analyzing this deal before you even have a conversation. You might feel like you're working efficiently, but in reality, you are self sabotaging yourself and you are ruining your campaign. Do not have these assumptions. Call your prospects right away. And I know I haven't even jumped into it yet, but that is the biggest. If you take away anything from this long spew I'm going to have in breaking down our protocol, I hope this is one of those things that you take away, because this is the biggest mistake that we see people make. This is the kiss of death for people in this industry, is they will prejudge these leads and they will not call the leads because they are making assumptions before having those conversations. So now let's dive into it. Okay, the lead hits our CRM and now it is time to call them. So hopefully the prospect answers and we go through our script, which I will dive into later. Or the prospect doesn't answer. And what I recommend everybody does is you always want to double dial your people. So a lead comes in, you call it once. If they don't answer, you call it immediately right after. And after your double dial, let's say that the prospect still does not answer. Now we're going to dive into what our 7-day follow-up sequence looks like. And people call this a bunch of different things. People call it like their 7 days of hell, or certain marketers or sales guys call it like buy or die. Essentially, what it means is when a lead hits your CRM, you need to be doing every single thing in your power to reach that individual. So what we have built out is a 7-day touchpoint sequence for how we reach out to our prospects. And a big thing about this is a good CRM should hopefully do all of your heavy lifting. And hey, the benefit by working with no accent callers, you get our pre-templated CRM that does a lot of this for you, because follow-ups are key in this business. The rule of thumb that people like to say is, hey, it takes maybe 5 to sometimes even 12 touch points until you turn that lead into a contract. So having your follow-ups is the key to success. Unfortunately, most of these leads are not going to be one call closes. This is a very emotional transaction for the homeowner. And I'm going to dive into the kind of psychology of the homeowner a little bit. But you need to be doing everything you can to get on the phone with these individuals. And this is why we call it the 7 days of hell, our 7-day follow-up sequence. So what we do is the lead comes into our CRM. And like I said, we double dial them. And hey, after we dial them twice, if they do not answer, we send them a text. Hey, John, you just tried your cell. Give me a quick ring when you can. And we also say the same thing over a voicemail. So within these first 7 days, we do this in the morning and in the afternoon. So I call them twice in the morning. I call them twice in the afternoon. And we do this for no joke, 7 days straight, 7 days until we are getting on the phone with this individual. Because what you got to remember is every single lead has a price tag attached to it, whether it's $20, $50, $100, or $1,000. Every lead costs you money, and you need to do everything in your power to get on the phone with that individual. No matter what the notes say, no matter what location the property is in, you need to do everything in your power to get on the phone with that individual. Otherwise, you are just lighting money on fire and that money is gone. So we have this 7-day sequence where we continue to prospect until we get on with them. So call twice in the morning, and if they don't answer, I leave a voicemail and then I send them a text. And we do this for 7 days straight. And hopefully during this process, we are able to get on the phone with the individual. But let's say for some odd reason, we do not get on with them. Then we'll go and put them down another automated follow-up sequence. So where we send weekly texts and weekly calls. And you can configure this however you like. Some people do a weekly text, a bi-weekly text, a monthly text, a quarterly text. Feel free to customize it as much as you want. But in short, the whole synopsis about this is we want to do every single thing that we can to get on the phone with this individual. And that is why we call it the 7 days of hell, because if they do not answer our phone, we are doing every single thing in our power to get on with them. So now we're finally able to get on the phone with the individual. And as I was building this breakdown, I'm diving through our acquisitions process. I was determining, hey, do I want to build out a script or do I want to kind of like talk through it with everybody here? And I chose to not go the script route because a big mistake that I see individuals do is they sound robotic and they're just going down the list of questions that they have, and they're not actually engaging in a genuine conversation with the individual. And that is one of the biggest mistakes people make. And I know I keep saying like the biggest mistakes and all that stuff, but there are only a couple of things that you can really mess up that will result in inevitable failure. And I think the biggest reframe and the biggest thing that I want you all to take away from this within our sales process, within our acquisitions process, is that to understand the difference in psychology between us as investors versus the individuals that we are prospecting to. For us as investors, we are numbers people. We are in the game of assets, of real estate, of numbers. And we tend to have a different lens when we are analyzing deals. We don't care about emotion. We care about the math and the numbers. And I'll be diving into the numbers in a little bit as to what that looks like. But we are very numbers oriented. The homeowners, the complete opposite. And the biggest takeaway that I hope you have is that this is not a transactional sale. What I see people do, and this is why I think this is probably one of the number one reasons people fail, is they will see a lead, they'll get on the call, they'll maybe talk for 2 minutes, and they begin negotiating price. This is an emotional sale. This, for a lot of people, for a lot of homeowners, this is their most prized possession that they own in their life. Maybe they've owned the property for 20 years. I was actually talking with a seller today, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean, I was raised in this house. It was passed down to me. I raised my kids in this house." There's a lot of sentimental value attached to these. Is maybe someone has lived there for 20 years. Maybe they had their family and grew their family in there. Maybe they lost a loved one in the house. There are a lot of different things that happen. And this is very emotional to them. It's a very hard thing for them to do, to let go of this piece of property that they love and hold so deeply. So you do not want to just jump in and dive into the numbers. It's a very emotional process for them. And that is why the biggest key within our sales process is to understand their story, understand the real reason for them wanting to sell. Because as we said earlier, the initial cold call is a 5-minute conversation. We don't have much details, unfortunately. So it is your job to dive into their pain points, to understand what is the reason that they want to sell. And hey, what are their plans after they sell? What happens if they don't sell the property? Those are some good questions to ask of, hey, like what are your plans after you sell this? Or hey, what happens if you guys aren't able to get that price you're looking for? Or what happens if you're not able to sell? You want to really understand the why. What is the reason for them wanting to sell? Because if they wanted top dollar, they would probably just go and turn around and list this thing on the market. But there's always something deeper. And the deeper that you can get with the homeowner, the more likely you are to win the sale and to get the best deal possible. So you need to understand their pain, but you also want to be a genuine human being, have a conversation. If for some reason the homeowner is taking a tangent and talking about how the Chicago Bears are terrible, then you'll want to do the same too. So you want to build that connection. You want to build rapport with them. And then, of course, we're going to dive into the tactical stuff and understand the condition of the property. But before we even dive into that, you need to know the why. What is going on here? What is the reason? What is the story? And that is something that you always want to keep in the back of your head to understand why they want to sell. Another thing to realize is this is a homeowner's most prized possession. Unfortunately, maybe these individuals don't have a lot of savings, or they don't have a Roth IRA or a 401k or a checking account with millions of dollars. This is likely their most prized possession. Maybe their whole net worth is tied into this property. So there are a lot of variables at play here, whether it's their story, the sentimental value, or the actual real value of the asset and how it is the biggest driver of their net worth. There are a lot of variables at play in these transactions, and that is why it is so important that you understand their story. And that is why I didn't provide a script for you guys or a framework to walk through, because you want to take the conversation wherever the seller decides to steer it. And I train my acquisition reps on the same exact thing. I don't give them a script. I just say, hey, in this call, I want you to understand their story, the why, and I want you to understand what's going on with this property, what's the condition. And on this first call, we are never pitching price. We are never negotiating price. The whole point of this process, and this we kind of have like a 2-call process, where on this first call, we are just trying to gather as much information as humanly possible about their story. And then now we'll also dive into like the technical side of what's going on with this property. Because of course, when we are underwriting this deal after the call, not before, but after, we want to be able to know what is the age of the roof, what is the HVAC situation, does the kitchen need any repairs, how is the flooring, is there any drywall ripped off the side, or any cabinets broken in the kitchen. We want to firstly understand their story personally, and then the story about the property. So those are the two biggest things: story of the individual and story of the property. So on that call, we are really diving into that with them and breaking it down, because our goal on this first call is to gather as much info as possible, so that now after the call, we can do our due diligence and we can craft that solution. And I hope you remember the analogy of the doctor and the patient. As a doctor, we need to ask these questions. We need to understand the story about them, the story about the property, because that is the biggest driver. And I'm going to take a step back, actually, because I think this is super important. I really want to hit on this emotional point here. As you see with my flip here, I bought this property for almost half the value. And some people would say, Daniel, how is that even possible? And such a big asset. So I don't want to use the exact names of the individuals, but I'll give you a quick background on the story of this property and why I was able to get a home run deal. I mean, this is one of the best deals I've ever had, as we can see here. So I'll quickly break down the why. So this individual, I'm going to call her, I don't know, Jackie. So Jackie is a single mother of 3. She had 3 young kids. She was raising her family in Denver. And unfortunately, some circumstances changed in her life. Jackie's been raising her kids there, and her mother got sick. And her mother is down in Birmingham, Alabama. So as we go and see, she is over in, where are we? We're in Denver, Colorado over here. And she had to go in by car, go and travel all the way down to Birmingham, Alabama over here. She had to drop her whole entire life, literally left every single thing behind in her house. Like, she didn't have time to, and had to immediately rush to Alabama. And she was unfortunately dealing with some family situations with her mother and her sister. And she had to leave everything behind. And unfortunately, she had a mortgage on the property, and she fell about 9 months behind. The bank was knocking on her door saying, hey, we are going to take your property from underneath you in 10 days if you do not get this remediated. So she was on a 10-day countdown for helping with the situation. And the challenge is, if she lost the property to foreclosure, she would have lost all of her equity. She would have had her credit tainted for life. She probably would be insanely challenging to ever get another mortgage again. It was not a great situation. And we called her and understood her story. And the biggest thing was the situation with, she had to leave everything behind in her house. Her whole life was in this house in Denver, and she had no means of ever being able to get back there. So on that call, the biggest thing that we were emphasizing was being able to help her in her situation. I think I went 4 calls without ever even talking about the price of the property, because what we were trying to help her with is, how can she resume her life and get a fresh start? She had no money. She was going to lose her property to foreclosure. All of her stuff was left behind, and she had no money or means to go and get it. And she would have lost that thing in 10 days, and all that personal property would have been thrown away, her whole life thrown away from underneath her. And we were able to come in and help her on the situation. The first thing we did was we went in on our own dime. Before we even got it under contract, I went and paid 4 movers to move all of her stuff into a U-Haul and then ship it from, as we see, all the way from Denver, Colorado to Birmingham, Alabama. And she really appreciated the effort of everything we were doing. We were able to connect her with an attorney and get all the paperwork in place and get everything lined up, get all of her stuff moved over, and paid for 3 months of her rent in Birmingham because she had nowhere to go. And we were able to leave her with some cash in her pocket. And she was more than thankful to be able to help her in the situation, because she thought she was on the edge and she was going to lose everything. And because we were able to solve that problem and solve all of the pain that she was in, that is why we got such a good deal. And I'm sorry for diving so deep into that tangent, But I want everyone to realize this is you need to change your perspective within wholesaling. We are not in the real estate business. We are in, unfortunately, the people's business and the sales business. And if you do not understand their story and understand that this is an emotional transaction, failure is inevitable in this space. So hopefully on that call, in the first call that you have, you're able to gather all of the information possible. And that is where we talk about all of our exit strategies. And the last thing that you ever want to be is a one-trick pony. And hey, for any of you who are on this call right now, I'll send you guys all this kind of full stack calculator that we have that can essentially analyze any single exit strategy for you. All you got to do is throw in a couple of inputs and boom, it's going to go and create everything for you. So before I dive into the exit strategies, I'm just going to quickly check to see if anybody has any questions before I dive into it. It's really quick. While I'm looking at this form, if someone wants to submit any questions or anything you want me to quickly dive into before I take the next steps, I'll give it 1 second and drink some water here. I'll wait like a minute to see if anybody wants to submit a question that they had. And I hope this has been of some value so far. And I hope a big thing that you all realize is I am 40 minutes into this live stream and I have not once talked about the numbers. And that is because the biggest reframe I want all of you to have is this is not a real estate business. You are in the sales and people's business. And if you do not understand that, you are not going to be able to win in this business. Unless you're one of those guys like my buddy Matt, who's really good at these messy titles and super crazy paperwork stuff. For most of you, and for myself and my personal business, this is the perspective I've always taken. So I'm going to give it another second. Someone wants to submit a question in here, that'd be great. If not, no worries. So it looks like I got no questions. So I hopefully it's been of some value for all of you so far. So now I'm going to continue. And I know I mentioned that this is not a numbers business, but the unfortunate reality is the numbers are my favorite part. So we're going to dive into the exit strategies. So there's a couple of options after this call. After we talked to them, we understood their story. We have a couple of strategies that we like to leverage. Number one is just like a conventional cash deal. Oh, wait, sorry. Give me 1 second. I'm just thinking, I see I have a tech issue. So I see I don't have a tech issue. Okay, never mind. So we're going to dive into these exit strategies. And actually before, I'm going to drop this calculator in this chat because this is of immense value. And I see people charging way too much money for this. Turns out I don't know how to do this. I'm not good at technology. I actually don't know how to put something in the chat. So if any of you are watching this or watching the recording, just text in your CSM chat, say, hey, Daniel sent me. Can you send me over the calculator that he was talking about on the stream? So now let's actually dive into it. So we are over here. So we're going to go through the exit strategies. And I hope you guys all understand this is that when I say we're like the doctor versus the patient, as a doctor, you don't only have one prescription you can give. You don't just say, hey, go and take Advil in a hot shower and you're good. You need to understand all of your different options. So I'll quickly run through all of those. We've got a cash deal, which is what most people are familiar with. A novation deal, which as you saw, I was able to hit 2 really, really good deals this month. A seller finance deal and an agent referral listing, which I'll dive into as well. A hybrid deal, a sub-2 deal, and the deal does not work. So we'll quickly go over the cash deal. And in this calculator, I'll quickly run through these numbers first so that you guys can learn how to use this. So how it works is all you need to do is put in a couple of inputs. So as we see as a cash deal, hey, I buy this thing for 200 grand. It needs 20K in rehab. I want to make a 20 grand assignment fee. And the ARV is 300K and it's going to rent for, call it 3,000. So now what you can do is you can do this for every exit strategy for cash deals, sub-2s, hybrids, seller finances, novation. I'll just do it for novation too. And oops. And then automatically the calculator will do its thing. So you can see, I guess I lied. No, it can't. So MAO is you just input your numbers. Hey, this thing's gonna be worth 300 grand fixed up. It needs 10K in rehab. And I want to make a 10 grand fee. So we know, hey, this is my MAO. At this price, I can make it make sense. And then there's a fix and flip calculator, a Berg calculator, where you can say, hey, what happens if I buy this and do a cash out refi? What do the numbers look like? So if any of you are investors, as you see, I've got a bunch of units myself. So I love the investor lens side of things. You can quickly go and check out all this stuff. So it'll help underwrite everything for you. Underwrite is a seller finance deal, a novation deal. If I want to make 30 grand in this deal, let's see, boom. And then also for any of you who get some multifamily deals, you have this calculator here. So just text your CSM, you're gonna get all this information. So now we're gonna go through, okay, here are all of our options. When does it make sense to pitch all of these? So I always say like the first two offers you always wanna give are the cash and the novation deal. So I'll quickly dive through what that framework looks like. And again, for those of you who are watching this video, you are lucky. I do have a script for novations because it is a little bit more nuanced. Again, text your CSM and I'll get that for you. So how we position the cash deal versus the novation deal. The cash deal, the whole value of it is the speed side of things. And this is like kind of what I did with the Denver deal. It was like kind of a mix of cash slash like sub 2-ish. But the value in the cash deal is the speed side of things. Somebody is in not a good situation and they're like, hey, I need cash as fast as possible. That is how we position the cash deal. It is never the best price that we offer, but it offers the best terms of, hey, Mr. Seller, we can close in 14 days. I can move as fast or as slow as you need. So the unfortunate reality is the cash deal from a price standpoint is always going to be your lowest price because in order to get the spread that we want, that's just the reality of how the numbers work there. And again, go in the calculator and mess around with it. And you can analyze like, hey, if the ARV is 300 grand, what is my cash offer versus what is my novation offer? And so how we position our offers is we always do these offers together, the cash deal and the novation deal. So let's say, for example, we saw in the calculator, our MAO for cash was a 200 grand offer. And we know for innovation, it's a 250K offer. So just really quick, I know that a lot of you are, if you're working with us, you're probably pretty experienced, but if some of you are a little bit newer to this, I'll quickly explain what innovation is. Innovation is like a cash deal where instead of like using Investor Lift or using your connections to find the buyer, instead of novation literally just means I have the right to market the property. That's literally all it means. I just want to make sure my screen was still shared. But a novation means that it's the same exact contract as a cash deal, but it says I have the right to market the property on the MLS. So how it works is, but the caveat to innovation is it is a slower process. We say the cash deal, hey, we can buy this thing in 15, 20, 30 days. But with innovation, it's like a 90-day sales cycle. So how we pitch it is saying, hey, Mr. Seller, yada, yada, yada. We're able to come in. We can close in 2 weeks. We cover all closing costs. So the price that we say is the price that you get and you walk away with. So for us, just given all the work this property needs, we would come in at about 200 grand. However, if you're like, Daniel, there is no way in hell that I will take 200. Instead, you might qualify for another program, and you can call this whatever you want. People call it like the equity protection plan, the equity acceleration plan. My buddy Jack, if you're watching this, you're a killer. My buddy Jack is like 350 grand a month with only novations. He calls it the concierge service, where you say, hey, Mr. Seller, instead, you might actually qualify for our program called the equity protection plan, where how it works is we're able to get you a little bit higher of a price compared to that cash offer. So I know with the quick close plan, where we buy this in 2 weeks, we'll be at 200. With the equity protection plan, we can actually come in at about 250 grand. And again, we'll cover all closing costs, no fees. That is the amount that you walk away with, but it's going to be a little bit longer of a process. So it might take, instead of 2 weeks, it might take 60 days, 90 days, but usually we aim for that 60-day mark. And then we dive into like the value in it of, hey, how the process works is we work with a bunch of realtors, investors, and homeowners. And it's almost a concierge service. So instead of us being the direct buyers where we have to buy it at an investor price, instead with the equity protection price, we're able to get you that more money in your pocket. And really quick, just so you guys can see the numbers and see the difference. So with a cash offer, if you're looking at a deal where, let's say the ARV is 300 grand, we have to offer anywhere from 190 to like 210K for us to make our desired fee, versus with innovation, we can offer 240. So I love novations because we can offer the seller more money. They are a lot happier because they're going to get a bigger check at closing. And it also makes dispo so much easier. And a lot of you might resonate with this is like you work so hard to get a deal under contract just for you to not find a buyer. And usually it means one of two things. It means either one, you locked in at a bad price, or two, you just don't have buyers. So for the latter of that, let's say you learn your numbers, you use the calculator that I show you here. You should know the numbers and it's super easy. The option number two is more exposure for our deal. Because we are putting it on the MLS, we are getting a lot more eyeballs on the property. So let me see if I had a picture of how many eyes I got on my flip. As you see, actually, because we took it down because we got in their contract, it's a bad example. But anyway, the beauty of innovation is not only are we catering to investors, like through InvestLift, but we're also now opening our buyer pool to homestead buyers, to people who actually want to go and live in this property themselves. So instead of you having to go on Investor Lift and like pull list and cold call everybody to hopefully find a buyer, instead with innovation, you're able to cast a way wider net, and now the whole entire public market can see the deal. That's why I love novations. And the biggest thing on the sales side is you want to emphasize that you are solving their problem. And in exchange for solving their problem, hey, here's the price that you get. So when you are pitching this, it's like, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you said that you need to be in Montgomery because of your sister or your brother. And I know that you need to move fast. I think this might make a little bit more sense for you. Or if you're talking to a seller who's like, hey, Daniel, I'm fine waiting 30 days or 60 days because I want more money. Hey, this might make sense for you. So if somebody said, Daniel, I need to sell my property in 10 days, I'm never going to offer innovation. And it's almost insulting if you offer it because it means you didn't listen to them. You didn't understand their problems. And that is why I emphasize knowing the full story, because that's how you cater your offer. You want to solve their problems. But in order to solve their problems, you need to understand what they are. And that is why we have all these exit strategies that we leverage. And for seller finances. So the unfortunate, what I hate is like when you go through the sales process, you build the connection, you understand the story, and you build really amazing rapport. But what happens if they want too much money, right? Like, what do we do there? So let's say if somebody wants 100% of ARV, you can keep pushing and try your best to get the novation or cash. I don't usually recommend this, and this is only recommended for certain particular instances, is seller finance, where how it works is what we say, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you said, Daniel, I need 300 grand, not a dollar more, not a dollar less. What we can do is instead of you getting all of that amount up front, what we do is we give you a portion of it. So call it 20 or 30 grand. And then we'll actually give you monthly payments for call it the next 5 years. And then we give you the rest of it. So the reason it might make sense for you is, hey, some people really love the idea of the passive income and it helps offset your capital gains because rather than getting it all up front, it's kind of spread out. So some people love that. And this is why you gotta be careful with when you pitch this because some people, you need to understand their goals. If they need this cash to go and buy a new house or to go and pay like medical bills, this will never make sense. Maybe you're talking to like an investor who liked owning rental properties, but he was like, Daniel, I cannot deal with another tenant who's saying, hey, go and fix my toilet. So it's funny. If any of you follow me on Twitter, you'll see I always tweet about this. Like I've got a Section 8 tenant who texts me like maybe every 3 days saying, Daniel, my toilet doesn't work. Or, hey, Daniel, the tenant below me keeps playing their TV too loud at night. People just don't want to deal with those headaches anymore. And that's why seller finance sometimes makes sense for people. Be very careful with pitching this. I come from like Pace Morby world, so I love creative finance, but you need to know when to pitch it and when it makes sense. And this, another one is like sub twos and hybrids. I'm not going to dive too much into the technicals of this. If you're interested in learning more about it, I've got the calculator, but I recommend going to like Pace Morby's videos. He is just way better than me at presenting this. I think he's more qualified than me, so I would look at his videos. But this is my favorite thing. So I know I've said, like, if you guys take away anything, I hope it's this. It's 3 things. So we'll call it 4 things. My 4 pillars is number 1, never prejudge leads. Number 2 is follow up with your leads. Number 3 is understand that it is an emotional sale. And number 4, my favorite thing is agent referral listings, AKA what I like to call turning your dead leads into dollars. And I'm realizing I think I put the wrong link in here. So give me 1 second. I'm going to unshare my screen and pull it up. And again, Hopefully the CSMs don't hate me when I keep saying this. Ask them for this document if you would like. This is where I run through the whole exact protocol of what it looks like. So give me 1 second, let me pull it up. Me and these technical issues today have not been fun. So give me 1 second. I'm struggling to actually find this right now. So while I have this delay, hopefully you guys can read submit any questions. Let's see if you have any questions yet. Nothing yet. No questions. Okay, I got the document. Sorry for all these delays, guys. My screen. And this is what I call turning your dead leads into dollars, agent referrals. So I'm going to dive tactically into it. But the TLDR is if a seller wants 85 to 100% of their property's value, for us as wholesalers and investors, we are in the business of buying properties for a discount. And you can go through your sales process. You can build all this rapport. And you've got a couple of options. If somebody wants too much money, you can either, one, throw away that lead and say, hey, no, they want too much money. I don't want to deal with it. I'm going to throw it away. Number two is you can follow up with it. Number three is you can pitch seller financing. But number four, this is what I love the most, is agent referrals. So if somebody wants too much money, do not toss that lead. It's a gold mine, but not for you directly. These are, if any of you are real estate agents or you know anybody who's a real estate agent, like this is what they dream about, is a motivated seller who wants to sell at a realistic price point and they want to sell like in the next month. That is like a dream scenario for an agent. But for us as investors, no, it's not. It doesn't make sense for us. So how it works is when a cash offer or innovation isn't a fit, we instead want to hand this lead over to an agent because the agent, they specialize in selling the property for the most money possible. Us as investors, we specialize in paying the least amount of money possible. So when they want too much money, this is gold for a real estate agent. And I hope that you guys leverage this and really use this process because this is how you can literally make an extra $2 or $3 grand or $4 or $5 grand a month. And this will cover all of your marketing. It's a no-brainer. So this is how you can literally scale and add more money to your bottom line without spending any more money on marketing. So what we're doing and why it works, again, we buy properties at a discount. That is what we do. So if someone wants near retail, that is a phenomenal lead, but not for us. So what we do is we want to instead work with an agent. So how it fits, here's how we pitch it. This is like our sales process with teeing up these agent referral listings. As you know, we have our price anchor, which is our low ball cash offer. The first thing you always want to pitch is that cash price. It's like, hey, Mr. Seller, we'll be at 200 grand. And then, hey, that doesn't hit. They're like, Daniel, shut up. That is terrible. Okay, now we pitch the novation, aka the white glove service, where instead of 200, we get to 250. And if neither of that works, then we pivot to this offer. So here's like kind of what it looks like. Is, as I said, like you want to be selective with when you use this. You do not want to prematurely pitch it because your goal is to get a deeply discounted deal. That's where you make the most money. This strategy is not going to make you the most money, but it's going to help you make more money and liquidate your marketing spend. So we exasperate these two options of cash innovation. We have multiple attempts, reframes, negotiations. And once we finally confirmed that those don't work, that is when we pitch this offer. So Mr. Seller, I mean, I'm hearing that 400 grand is where you need to be. And if I were you, I'd want top dollar too. Then we personally, like us in our business, we help people two ways. Is one is, as you know, like our typical cash offer, super fast, super simple. But as you know, we have to be at that 300 grand price point, or with our concierge program that I believe we can get you qualified for, it would come in at around 340. But just from these conversations, I can tell you're like, Daniel, I need 400 grand, not a penny less. We aren't out of options. So what we do is we actually work with some specialists in Chicago that's sole job is getting you top dollar. As you know, I'm an investor. We want to get deals for the lowest amount possible. Their job is not to buy it themselves, but instead their job is solely to get you the exact price that you are looking for. And similarly, they'll handle everything for you, or they'll handle this whole transaction A to Z. Is that something you'd be even open to exploring? And I promise you, we split tested this. No joke. We converted 1 in every 4 to 6 leads into this offer. Because think about it. all the pillars make sense. We know the condition. We know that they have a motivation to sell. They have a reason to wanting to sell the property. And three, they want to sell on a quick timeline. And quick for realtors is like 6-month timelines. So those three check off, but with price, it just didn't make sense for us. So they all want to sell and they need help, but it just did not work because of price. And that is why this is the perfect thing to pitch. And that is why our conversion is so amazing with this. So there's two ways you can go about this is you can like do a live transfer or you can just like text them after. So the handoff is huge because as I said, speed is key in this business. If you wait 2 weeks to intro this lead, the deal's gone. Someone already worked with them. So the best way is to live transfer the lead. Hopefully you've already made some connections with other agents in your market. And literally you just say, hey, like if they said they're open to exploring it, say, hey, give me 1 second. I'm actually going to go and reach out to them really quick and see if they can jump on. I'm just going to put you on hold for like 1 minute. And hopefully you can like call them and they already know your process. You guys already have a JV agreement in place with them. And boom, we bring them on the call and they lock it in. Or if that's not possible and you can't do a live transfer, just like make a group chat after the call or schedule a follow-up call where you do it. So the biggest thing is like you want to tee up the story. You really want to make sure the seller is ready. You know what they want and you know that this makes sense for them. And a huge piece, and this is what will like ruin this for you, is choosing the wrong agent. That is like the kiss of death here. If you choose someone who is not qualified to list the property, you just wasted your time and money and efforts. So before you start pitching this, you want to have like 2 or 3 agents, or I would say just one agent in each county that you operate in, that you have these teed up and already agreed upon. So what I would do is you can just Google this, go on Zillow, go on realtor.com, see all the top listing agents in your area, and you can look at these KPIs, but you don't really need to. But instead, just see all the agents and choose like 5 of them that you think are doing a decent amount of volume, that are actually doing deals. Schedule a call with them and have an interview and let them know the premise of it, saying, hey, like we're investors. We get a ton of opportunities a month. And the only reason that we do not convert every opportunity into a deal is because they want retail value. We want to get these things for discounts. And a lot of these guys want 90 to 100% of the value. And ask them, hey, are you guys taking on referral leads? Every agent loves a referral lead. So it's a no-brainer. But you want to interview them. You want to make sure that you understand, are they qualified? Walk me through your first 48 hours after a signed listing. How do you set price expectations? Can you kind of show me like a before and after of a tough listing you worked with? What's like your speed to lead with this? My favorite way to test is I cold call agents. And if they don't answer my first call, they lost the job. They didn't get it. You need an agent who is fast to pick up the phones. So you need to go and call all of them. If they don't answer, boom, they're not getting the job. They are not the right person to work with. So make sure their responsiveness, make sure they are fast and they are quick. So make sure to go and diligently vet them. And like I say, SLA is huge. Make sure they answer fast. So the biggest thing with choosing the right agent is make sure to someone who's qualified and knows how to actually sell these properties, because they can get a deal under contract and maybe not sell it. Or you can make the warm intro, they're ready to go, but maybe the seller was like, that guy really ticked me off. I do not want to work with them. Make sure that you are diligently vetting these people and choosing the right individual to work with on these. I promise, please try this for at least 5 leads. If it doesn't work, then say Daniel was lying to me. If you master the script and you master this framework, you will get the results. So I know I keep saying, like, if you take away one thing, I hope you please just implement this one thing. Go through your CRM, look at the old leads, have a conversation. Those leads are already gone. You're not going to get like those leads aren't in contract yet. You plan on following up with them. Go and reach out to them and try this script. Try the pitch. I promise you it is going to convert. And let's run through the math, right? Like, we want to make money. That's the business we're in. How does the math work here? So here's how you make money, and here's why an agent loves this idea. So let's say, for example, the expected sale price of a property is $500,000. If they're just going to be on the seller side, they get a 3% commission, aka 15 grand. So they're like, if I call an agent and I'm like, hey John, I've got this individual, they want to list, they're ready to roll. The property is worth like 520, they're ready to list at 500 grand. Are you open to taking any referrals? They're thinking in their head, oh my God, this person's already ready to sell. They're already vetted. They want to sign and get moving as soon as possible. I'm going to make 15 grand. Oh my God, it's a no-brainer. The thing is, agents are not the best at lead generation. They're good at the service they provide, at doing open houses, at doing marketing, at talking to buyers. They always struggle with this one thing. And this is why most agents fail, is because they don't know how to get listings. So when you tee up an idea of saying, hey, here's a listing, and you don't even need to pay me up front, just pay me when the deal closes, they're going to be salivating at the mouth saying, oh my God, how can I get every single one of these? And all you're going to say is, hey, like, if I was able to tee up these listings for you, like, would you be able to give me a kickback? And I think I've run through the pitch here. So, like, if you went when you're cold calling them, hey John, this is Daniel. I run an acquisition shop in Madison. A decent amount of our sellers are set on market pricing. I've actually got one now, and they're ready to roll at 500. I think it's probably worth about like 520. If I teed up and kind of give you exclusivity, are you open to giving a referral fee at closing? So these agents are going to be stoked. And the beauty is, hey, you will, no joke, make anywhere from 1 to 3 grand on these deals. And don't get me wrong, that's not going to change your life. This 1 to 3 grand is not going to take you to the promised land and you're going to be living off passive income for the rest of your life. This is just an easy way where if you convert one of the leads that you get into this, boom, you just covered your overhead. You covered your marketing for the month. And now you can keep the lights on and now you can keep pushing. Because like I said, it takes 25 leads to get a deal. So you need to keep the lights on. You need money in the door. And that is the beauty of this. And for every agent, it is an absolute no-brainer. So final words is like when someone wants too much money, it's not a bad lead. It's just a bad lead for you as an investor. So instead of throwing that lead away, do this process. I promise you it converts. We tested it ourselves and we had a bunch of other people do the same. I don't know why nobody talks about this, but this is the number one way that you can convert more deals. So I just realized I lost my Lucid chart that I had up, but I hope that was helpful with the referral listings because that is such low-hanging fruit. It is ridiculous. And I really do hope that some of you take away that and actually leverage it in your business because it crushes for us. We've already battle tested it. We know guys who literally leave the wholesale business to instead just pursue listings because they're like, Daniel, this is such an easier sale because we're able to get them the exact price that they're looking for. So diving back to our good Lucid chart that we have here. So again, we have all of our strategies. We have a cash deal. We have innovation. We have seller finance. We have referral listings. We have hybrids. We have sub-twos. You need to learn to monetize every single lead that comes in. You do not want to let any single lead die in this business. So now let's say we tried everything, right? And nothing works. Follow-up sequences, just follow up with your prospects. So you try all your options. And the biggest thing with follow-ups is this. Circumstances change. Maybe they're like, you know what, Daniel, like the foreclosure is not a big deal. I've got 3 months to pay it off. And like 2 months down the line, they're like, oh my God, I've got a 30-day countdown. I need to close now. Or they were owning a rental property and they're like, you know what, the tenant hasn't been that bad. But like a month later, the window gets shattered. Now the homeowner's like, I'm done with this. So circumstances change. So make sure you're following up. And again, have it built in your CRM to do these drip sequences, to send biweekly text, to have biweekly calls and have conversations. And again, leverage this calculator. We have a decision tree on what strategies make the most sense here. Practice with this, run through these numbers. And I promise you, this will turn you into an expert in running these numbers. This has been, I know a lot of people get a lot of value out of this. So again, ask for this calculator. It will help you with all of these strategies. For those of you who want to do multifamily, like shoot me a text on the side. I'm always happy to dive into the weeds of that stuff. So again, we know all of our exit strategies here. And again, on that first call, we are uncovering all of their problems. We are asking questions. And after we do all of our due diligence here, we're now going to craft the perfect offer. And maybe on one of my next videos, I'll actually dive into how we underrate and comp and do all that fun stuff. So we've analyzed all of our strategies. We pitch our offers and hopefully we get a deal. And if not, we continue to follow up. So that's it for my acquisition framework here. And this is how our team crushes it and how other teams crush it and how you can crush it as well. And again, this is not theory. This is not me just like thinking in my head how this business works. We've done hundreds of deals. We own 100 plus units. We worked with hundreds of different business owners who leverage these processes, who are doing far better than us. This is what the best people are doing. So I promise you, please just blindly trust me with some of this stuff. Biggest, again, I hope to take, just reiterating those 4 takeaways. Do not prejudge your leads. Make sure you are following up with every single person. Understand that this is an extremely emotional sale. And hopefully you can leverage the agent referral listings and make sure that when you're crafting your offer, you are solving their problems. So that's all I was hoping to run through on this video. And again, it's my first time live streaming. I hope some of you got some value out of this. I'm going to quickly check to see if anyone submitted any questions. Nobody submitted questions. But anyways, I hope this was of some value, and I hope you had at least some takeaways. I know this is a long-winded video. I went for an hour 15 here, but please just try some of these strategies that we've implemented. And even if you don't believe me and you don't think they work, just implement them for 2 weeks. And if you notice success, great, double down. If it doesn't work, call Daniel a liar and on to the next. But this is what's worked for us. This is what we have seen work for countless other individuals. And I hope that you were able to have some good takeaways for those of you who watched this stream or watching this recording. I hope this did help you in some way. And again, this is what we have seen across hundreds of campaigns that we have worked on. We have probably arguably the most cold calling data out of any company in this industry. So we know what works, we know what doesn't, we see who wins and we see who fails. This is what has been battle tested and what we have seen continuously work and work and work. So again, I hope you got some value out of this. If I can figure it out, I'm going to end the stream now. But again, I really hope you guys all got some value and got some good takeaways from this, and hope you guys crush it and have a nice one, everybody.